Hey, Alyssa.
Hey, Sam.
Are you ready?
I'm ready to rumble.
That's what I like to hear. Okay, so today, this was something that was requested quite a while ago, but we're just getting to it now. So
Okay, great.
someone had requested for us to do a podcast talking about what we learned in therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So let's appease that person.
Let's do it.
We can get one.
I love pleasing the masses, and the masses are one person.
Yeah. So, Miss Alyssa, first of all, how long have you been in therapy for now?
Oh my goodness. Wow, has it been a year?
I would, well, I don't think you went into Annie that quickly, did you?
I don't know, because I know that I was really nervous.
Yeah.
It must have been November, but almost a year.
Yeah. What made you nervous about therapy?
Oh, I don't know.
Where do I begin?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that made me nervous was, okay, so the nervous feeling was like fight or flight. It was like, the feeling of being in there, like I would get tunnel vision when I was looking at her, and I would just get like, so like, it was like I was giving a speech in front of like 1,000 people.
Like you couldn't focus kind of thing?
Not that I couldn't focus. I was like hyper aware of everything, of her like mouth movements, her like, oh my goodness, I can't even like really explain it, because it's just like, I think I would have like an anxiety attack basically like as soon as I would sit down, because it was like literally all of the like whatever markers of like an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
And I would have to like calm myself down, because this is before she knew me, so she didn't know that I like struggled with anxiety and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it was just like, I mean, I've said it before, and it's all subjective, but like I've done a lot of fucked up shit in my life.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of fucked up shit done to me and around me and stuff. So it's just, I've never really like been fully honest with anyone about it. Like I'll tell one person something and another person another thing, but nobody's had like the full.
It's like half truths.
Not half truths, but like
half stories.
Well, just like not the whole like not the whole pie. Like everybody gets like a piece of the pie, or like one experience that I've had, but nobody has had like, they don't have all of the knowledge.
Yeah.
And that was basically what I was consenting to by going in there, is like telling one person
everything,
all of it, you know, like like my struggles with like addiction, and just the way that I treated my body and stuff like that, and the way like I was with men or friends, or you know, my family and stuff like that. That's a lot.
Yeah.
For like me to divulge, I guess, and to be truly honest.
Yeah.
Because I felt like people couldn't, like, you can't handle the truth.
Can you imagine like your therapist is just like, actually, this is like a little bit too much for me. I think I'm gonna have to like, I'm tapping out on this one.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was like worried about. I was, because I spent so much of my life like trying to put up a facade where like everything's okay, I'm fine, like I'm perfect. So yeah, I was really just nervous about that, but there hasn't been a moment yet where she's been like shocked or surprised.
You haven't gotten her just yet.
Yeah, no, not yet. Were you nervous to go to therapy?
Oh my God, yeah. I put it off for so long. Okay, so this was basically like the chain of events. I was super, super depressed, and I had been for like months and months, and I was just like not able to like pick myself out of it kind of thing. And then I reached out to a therapist, and she got back to me, and she was like, hi, I just started my maternity leave yesterday. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
I worked up all this courage.
Yeah, because like it was just like, I was so depressed at the time that doing anything was really, really difficult for me. So like it took a long time for me to like work that up, to be like, okay, I'm gonna reach out to this person. And then she was like, I'm on maternity leave, and I was like, okay, well, for fuck's sake.
I quit.
Yeah.
I quit life.
And then she was like, but I really recommend like this colleague of mine, she's great, blah blah blah, whatever. And I reached out to what was Annie, her colleague, and and Annie, like, first of all, she's not great at responding to like phone calls and emails and stuff like that. Like she kind of takes her time. So that made me super nervous. And then we kind of had like a misunderstanding. So then I didn't go see her for like 2 months.
Oh, wow.
Because I was so just like I just couldn't handle that, like the first chick turned me down basically. And then we had this kind of like weird misunderstanding with me and Annie. And then finally after 2 months, I was just like, I need to come in like tomorrow. And she was like, okay. And I was so nervous, like right before I almost canceled my first appointment.
Really?
Yeah. Because I think that I just worked it up so much in my mind where I was like, this isn't going to help me. And I'm just going to go in there and be more sad when I leave and all that kind of crap. So I just wasn't ready to do that. But it was not like that at all.
If you feel comfortable sharing, what was your first session like with Annie?
Oh, I can't remember my first session with her as much. But I just know that I kind of like rambled on about like all the shit basically. I talked a lot about like my job and how that kind of gave me feelings of like insecurity and how like I felt bad even being upset about my job because how'd you do that with your little thing?
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Whole new
Game changer. So yeah, I talked a lot about my job and just like feelings of insecurity around even being upset about my job because I was like, I know this is petty. And she was like, it's not petty.
Right.
Like, you know, you're paying to come here because you are clearly like distraught over certain things, and talked a lot about like just that kind of like judgment that we go through being online and stuff like that. And I'm sure I said a drop about Matt. But
how long ago was this? 2 years?
Yeah, I think I've been going about 2 years. Yeah. But what was your first session like with her?
I think I sat down and told her I was very nervous.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do when I'm like super anxious. I just need people to know so that it's not like, I don't know, a secret, I guess.
Yeah.
The first 2 sessions were basically like backstory because I do have quite a bit of trauma from like just my childhood and like my teenagehood and stuff that kind of, I think in order to like have a successful like relationship with my therapist or counselor, I would have to like give the backstory, I guess. So the first 2 sessions were like literally just me like going chronologically.
1993. Yeah.
Basically, dude. Yeah, basically. Because there's just so much that like I think I didn't realize how much from my past affects who I am today.
For sure.
And I think that now having that knowledge, I'm like, well, yeah, of course. But like people who haven't been through this process don't see it.
They don't. Yeah, for sure.
Because I didn't see it. So that's why I feel that way. But yeah, I think like 3 or 4 sessions in is when like things started to, like I started leaving feeling like, oh, I have like an action plan for this problem. Because I wasn't really bringing problems in. It was more so like, I didn't even know what my problems were.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
I don't even know that I felt like I had a problem really with anything.
So then what was it that kind of like led you to make the decision to go to therapy finally?
You forced me.
Was it me?
Yes.
Was I like, you're doing it?
Yes.
Well, there you have it. You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, it was in the car that time before I even lived here. You said you were worried about me. And then when I got here, you said, I think you should go see Annie. And I kept saying no. And you said, I think you should go see Annie. And I said no. And then you said, just try it. And so I fucking tried it. And then I kept trying to cancel and be like, I don't want to go. And then every time I would say that, you'd say, when you don't want to go is when you should go.
That's true.
Like, well, fuck, all right.
Yeah.
And it's true. And even like beyond like going through trauma and stuff like that, even like career wise, like she holds me accountable.
Oh, for sure.
Because she knows that that's what I like need out of that session or whatever. And it really has. Like I would have given up on acting right away. I would have probably not quit. Well, I know I wouldn't have quit Cactus had it not been for Annie.
Yeah.
Because as much as like you've been pushing me for years. So it was kind of like you and then her being like as a unbiased like professional in like a professional industry. It was kind of like, okay, well, maybe I can do this.
Yeah. Well, shout out Annie.
Yeah.
So what do you feel like is like the first, like what pops into your mind first as to like what the biggest thing you've learned in therapy is?
Off the top of my head, I think that other people, so there's, depending on how many people are in this situation, there's 2 different experiences of the same situation. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing to me because...
That's such a good one. I didn't think of that one.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you would.
But that is like a big one.
Oh, it's huge. And I use it all the time. I even use it when people like DM me and stuff like that. And they're like, well, I'm so sorry, like blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not having that experience. Like, I don't think it's weird type of thing.
Yeah.
But before, I think that I tried to see what was going on for other people, but I did that in like their life, not in the situation that I was having with them right that minute.
Yeah.
And it just opened up the doors for me because when I would be fighting with a partner or something like that, I'm like, okay, but maybe the experience I'm having of this isn't the same experience that they're having of this. So now let's like communicate and share about that, because I didn't really think of it before. I'm like, my experience is the only experience.
Yeah. And it's funny because like it really does, like that whole like idea really helps make you actually understand people and actually communicate, because I think a lot of the times we can have such like hurt feelings by the fact that we feel like someone else doesn't seem like they're as impacted as we are, and that kind of like immediately hurts us because we feel like, how could you not be as bothered by this? But when you come to understand that like it is a completely different experience for them, like that might not be a priority to them, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, or it just might not be like a trigger or whatever. And that helped me a lot as well with like understanding Matt, because we had such a hard time communicating in the beginning. And so really coming to understand and honestly trust that he was being honest in what his experience was. Because I think with a lot of past partners, it was sort of like, I would be like, why did you do this? And they'd be like, honestly, like I just wasn't thinking. And I was like, that's bullshit. But like, I trust that when Matt says like I wasn't thinking, that he just genuinely wasn't being cognizant. He wasn't being mindful. And and if I'm taking that into account, it doesn't mean it's okay, but like it's a lot. It really pads the blow of a lot of things.
And there's like a base, there's a starting place to like deal with that issue on its own. What's your biggest takeaway?
I definitely have a few. And so I've been doing counseling on my own. Matt does counseling on his own. And then we do counseling together every once in a while, kind of like when we feel like we need it, or if we're trying to prepare for something that we know is going to be like a harder experience. And so I think the biggest thing that was helpful for Matt and I as a couple was trying to kind of like see and also understand patterns and like why these things happen, because a lot of the times we just had we just couldn't communicate, and we didn't understand what the other person was saying. And I know that I've said this before on the podcast or somewhere, but like when we first started dating, we would be getting into an argument and I'd be like, I just feel like you don't care. And he'd be like, I took the like trash out and I did the like laundry and stuff. And I'd be like, okay. And I would just like go back to like what we were actually talking about. But for him, it was like he was trying to show like, these are the things I do to like show you I love you. Like, are you not noticing those things? Are you not acknowledging those things? And I was just like, am I talking to a brick wall? Like, why? Because I just didn't understand like why that had anything to do with anything. And I felt like he was just holding it over my head. And so when we could kind of go through the pattern of like, this is how our arguments always go, like it comes to a point where Matt tells me something he's done for me and then it just goes so sideways. And so kind of trying to see that pattern and then be like, why? Like, why does this happen at this point? Why does it go to this? Why does it go to this? And then, you know, we can kind of just like break it down from there to eventually change those patterns and have better communication and stuff like that. So the pattern thing was a big one for us. We also talked a lot about the, it's called the experience cube. And so basically this is just like a way to kind of like slow down and take a step back with a situation. So the experience cube is basically like, if you can picture a square with like 4 squares within it. And there's 4 different kind of areas. And the one area is observations. So that's things that can be recorded or filmed. That's just purely like, if I walked into the room in like a huff and threw something down, all you would actually know about that is that I walked into the room. Right. You wouldn't be like, you walked into the room angrily. Angrily is what you think I'm reacting like. So observations are just things that can be recorded and filmed. Thoughts are what you perceive of the situation. Feelings are obviously what you feel about it. And then your wants ultimately. So by doing this, you can kind of break down situations by being like, okay, like this is what I saw you doing. And this is what I thought about that. This is what I feel about it. And this is what I want to change or to do differently or whatever kind of thing. And so you kind of have to like really, really pick apart the situation. And instead of just like talking for the sake of talking and just trying to get your point across, this really breaks it down in a way that everybody can understand. And it sort of not even takes the emotion out of it, but compartmentalizes the emotion so that it's not like you're so forward with that, because a lot of people kind of lead with how hurt they are and you hurt me and you did this and you did that, but it kind of puts it back into your hands as to like, you know, I saw you doing this thing, that made me think this, that made me feel this, whatever. or I felt this. You're not supposed to say that made me do whatever. But so that kind of, helps us sometimes. If there's something we're really, really struggling to work through, we kind of just try to go through that and break down the situation that way, so that you're entering arguments with like a solution-based approach rather than just arguing to like get your feelings out.
And you guys actually utilize this method?
Not as much as we should, but
but you have in the past?
Yeah. And so like a lot of the times, again, like it just comes down to like Matt's perception of the situation, my perception of the situation, and those experiences conflicting. Right. Because we both see it as like really different things, and even just little things that kind of cause resentment over time. Like when we first moved into the house is a lot bigger than our apartment was and stuff like that. We were living in a smaller apartment before, and so there's like more to be done around the house, obviously. And Matt would feel like I was purposely not doing things around the house because I wanted him to do it. So I was just like waiting for him to do it kind of thing. And so when he would see these things, he would think that, and then he would feel resentment. Right. And I literally just I was completely oblivious to this going on.
Right. You were oblivious to the experience he was having.
Yeah. Because I'm just fucking lazy. Like, and honestly, like, it was just like I was just moving to another room so that out of sight, out of mind, you know what I mean? Like, it really wasn't about that. So instead of him just yelling at me for not doing dishes, you can kind of take that's a really simplified issue, obviously, of course, but you can kind of take that experience cube and be like, like this is how I think about it, rather than him just being angry about me not doing chores. Yeah. So it really helps to like break down situations, especially if it's something that you've fought about multiple times and not come to a conclusion on. And I think the wants part of that is actually a really important part, because a lot of people don't actually know what they want out of a situation. And so I think like when I try to go into arguments, I think I've mentioned this before as well, but I try to go into arguments with what is my solution, if any. And I try to continually focus the conversation back towards that, because I don't want to fight just to prove my point or to be right or, whatever, to upset you even, crap like that. Like I want to end it on us getting what we want out of the situation.
Sorry. Ugh. That No, that reminded me of a freaking I hate that happens to me. It reminded me of a conversation I had with my dad. My eyes started watering and I couldn't get it away.
I saw the well, and then I was like,
you're like, what is happening?
But it looked like it was only in one eye, and I was like, okay, this seems like it's not an emotional thing, but then it was just
it was like full waterworks. Sorry, jeez.
It's okay.
I don't even have to talk about that. It was just like one of those things.
You can talk about it if you want.
No, it's fine. Go on.
But yeah, I think it's just important to focus on wants, because, and especially not to generalize, but it's just what I see and experience. But a lot of the times men and male partners that I've been in relationships with, they don't know what the fuck they want. Yeah. Like when you kind of put them on the spot about it, they're like, they're basically just like, I don't want to fight. I know that much. But I think that, that's an important thing.
I think, sorry, just to say that, I think that it is important, because I believe that I used to be a person who just fought to fight.
Same, 100%.
Yeah, like when I wouldn't say in my last relationship, but like when I was, a growing adult, I would always do that. I would just be like, well, I'm angry, so let's yell about it, and then let's not resolve anything, because I don't have a solution.
Yeah. And I do think for me, I was the same way, first of all. And I do think that if for me, it was kind of like being able to feel like I had some control over the situation. Like I wasn't going to be hurt by this person, because I knew that I could like stand my own ground, basically. Right. And like I won a lot of arguments in my time,
Yeah, just to, fucking win.
Just for the sake of it. But I think that that's the difference between, a real relationship and not, and something that's going to work long term. Because I think that if you're fighting just for the sake of it, it's just never going to result in, it's always going to feel disingenuous. It's always going to feel more painful. It's not going to result in you guys understanding each other better.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times it just is the other person conceding because they're like, okay, I'm fucking over this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to sit here and be torn apart and shit like that. And
Yeah.
I think that as hard as it is sometimes, I think trying to protect the feelings of others and like your partner and stuff like that, especially in those arguments, is important. Which is something that I struggled with for a really long time because like I just felt like I wanted them to understand my hurt. And I didn't want them to make it about theirs. And so when I was able to kind of get like a hold on that and try and be more empathetic towards them and say like, okay, like I get that this is how you're feeling because of this situation, and like I want to clear that up and make sure that you know that like that's not what's going on. I don't feel that way, blah blah blah, whatever, but you know, like this behavior like still like isn't working for me and whatever. And just trying to be conscious of the other person's experience. Like I think it really just comes back to that so often, and I think that we really fool ourselves into thinking that we're more conscious than we are. But a lot of the times it's like, okay, but what are you going to do with that consciousness?
Yeah.
Like, are you actually going to utilize that and try and make it so that this is a more constructive conversation?
Well, yeah, and I think that it's so easy to minimize other people's feelings surrounding issues.
Yeah.
If you don't feel that way. But like I said in the friendship podcast, even if I don't have the same experience, if you or my partner or whatever is having a different experience, I want to be kind about it because I love that person.
Yeah.
If I don't love them, then I'm like, well, they're
Sorry,
not the
bitch.
same as me. Bye. But that's the thing is like, if you do love someone, even if you don't understand it, I think you still have to be mindful of it because you're trying to create like a life with them, whether, you know, whatever your intentions are with that life. But it's so important to care, I guess.
Yeah.
Care enough and be kind enough to still make a change, even if you don't understand it in that moment.
This is slightly off topic, but I'm just curious. If a partner asked you to like change something, would you?
Yeah, it would depend what it was. If it was something that I knew was either like against, I don't know, my beliefs or my morals or whatever, like if it was like an integral part of my being, then no, of course not. And I would explain why. And I think that was something I struggled with in my last relationship was I wasn't willing to compromise on a lot of things. And they weren't small things. It was like big things. And I'm like, I can't compromise this. Like, I just can't. This is something I cannot compromise. And I think that it's important to recognize that. And I hate it when people say recognize it early on because sometimes you don't know, but to recognize it if it's something you can't change. But if it's something small or like I need you to like do the dishes more, you know, again, simplifying like crazy, or I need you to be more mindful of how you speak with others because it hurts me. Because I am a very friendly person, and I wouldn't say that I'm like flirty, but I mean, I'm flirty.
Oh, come on.
I'm flirty.
Backed out of that one immediately.
Yeah. Well, because I was thinking, I'm like, well, I'm not like inappropriate, but like I think it's because I've just had partners who accept it. Yeah. But yeah, if it was something like that, of course, I would change it. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, obviously it depends on the thing, but I think that honestly, there's not a lot I wouldn't change for a partner. And it's shocking because I drop them like fucking flies. But I think that, again, going back to my parents' relationship, I really admired that they did try to work through things. And like, I know that they had disagreements and stuff like that, but they would try to like move with that rather than past it. Mm-hmm. And so I think especially because like I'm really sensitive and I know that there's certain things that really like it has less to do with your partner and more to do with your insecurity. And so there's a lot of things that like I've just been so insecure about that people didn't want to be conscious of that. They didn't want to have to change things to make me feel more comfortable and stuff like that. And I think that I just know how hard that is. And so as much as like there's certain things that are kind of childish or maybe like it shouldn't be as big of a deal as it is, I try to be really, really aware no matter how big or small it is and implement those changes where I can. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a point where Matt will find something that pushes me to the limit. I'll be like, no, not happening.
Yeah.
Something else that was a big one for me. Do you have a second one?
What was the question? Sorry.
Just like things you've learned in therapy.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go hard.
I learned a lot about shame.
Okay.
The shame piece, air quotations.
Yeah.
As it so goes. Yeah, I didn't realize that a lot of my anxiety and insecurity and stuff like that was revolving around shame and guilt. And so we talked a lot about that for like a long time. And again, obviously I feel like a fucking broken record talking about my alcohol, but that's ultimately why I like stopped drinking alcohol, was because it was causing physical side effects because of the guilt and shame I felt. But that was so much deeper than even just alcohol. It surrounded a lot of things, and like who I used to be.
Yeah.
And not putting that person like down, I guess, because it's still like a version of me.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't today with my eyeballs. Or ever. And just like accepting that person and not like, you know, like hitting them with the shame stick all the time, because that was the thing about learning about how we evolve as people is, you know, yes, it's important to take ownership, but I was taking a lot of ownership that I didn't really need to, I guess, and turning that ownership into shame instead of being like, okay, well, let's look at the facts here of what did happen, and this is how you coped. And though, you know, it's not an excuse, it is a reason.
Yeah.
And it is what I did, and there's no shame to that. And, well, there shouldn't be any shame to that. And I was putting so much on it that I didn't need to. So I really learned to not even forgive myself, but accept myself and start to love all of me. One time you asked me if I was embarrassed, like talking about certain things with people. And I said yes. And you were very surprised. And I'm like, well, I am embarrassed. Like, I'm embarrassed that like, those are things that I partook in and, like, whatever, and situations that I was in. And just hearing you say that you were surprised kind of made it feel okay for me, because I was like, again, going back to experience, this is my experience of me putting shame on myself. Like, maybe other people aren't hitting me with the shame stick, right? Like, I'm the only one, like, lashing myself. Yeah. So that was like it was a huge it was a huge part of like me being able to kind of like blossom into not a new person, but accepting who I am now and not feeling like I was an imposter even. Yeah. Because of it.
It's crazy how much of a hold like shame and guilt can like have on you. And I think it's kind of funny because a lot of people I think almost confuse that shame with being a positive thing, and that they think it's going to result in them being a better person. But a lot of the times, because you're carrying around so much shame, that is what's holding you back from being able to move on, because you just feel so shitty about yourself and so like worthless kind of a lot of the times that that you feel like I'm not worth the effort. Yeah. And I think that that was something that more Matt talked about a lot. I ain't got no shame.
Ain't no shame to my game.
Yeah. I think that I haven't experienced that as much, but I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that I have never really drank and stuff, so I just had to basically immediately accept those things.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, is when you're participating in a certain lifestyle, you're often more likely to do things that you wouldn't do in a sober mindset.
Yeah, for sure.
So you don't really have to wake up and come to terms with what you've done as a different person. You know what I mean? Yeah. And a lot of people, I mean, it's such a huge argument is like, you know, are like sober, whatever, drunk words or sober thoughts and stuff like that. But I mean, I've fucking been there, man. Like, I've been in a lot of altered states, and you know, it's not me. It's not who I am to my core, but you still have to come to terms with the fact that like, whoa, yeah, my body was participating in that, or like, you know, my being, not my body, but like the physical part of me. But like, I mean, there was one time I was at a bar, and my girlfriend at the time, like one of my like best girlfriends at the time, when I woke up in the morning, I was like, when did we leave the bar? And she's like, well, you left at like 10 p.m., but your body was still there. It was such like a weird way to say it, but I was like, oh my God, it's so true, because like
Dang, this friend really is not holding back at all.
Yeah. But it was funny because I was like, it's so true, because I would get to a certain point where like I could still talk and walk and like participate, but like I wasn't there. Yeah. Like Alyssa left the building, but like I was still there. So it's, yeah, I think that it's like being always like present, I guess.
Yeah.
You have to really take ownership that moment for what you've done. But yeah, the shame of what you do in an altered state kind of can like, can carry on.
Yeah.
And I think also, sorry to go on this little tangent, I think that because if you don't have to take ownership for it right away, you can kind of just pretend that it never happened and keep pushing it down and just be like, I'll deal with this later. But then you move on, and you move on from people and whatever, and then you're still holding on to this, and those people probably forgot that whatever it is that you're holding that over your head, you know, it doesn't exist for them, but you're just like, you're stacking it up inside your shame library.
Well, you're putting it off. Shame library. You're putting off, you know, coping, basically.
Yeah.
And that's, it's so funny. It's so interesting, like hearing other people talk about what therapy is like for them, because obviously like we're all learning different things from it because we have different lives and different issues and stuff. I asked Matt, I was like, what's one of the biggest things you've learned? And he said, understanding what different physical feelings were in emotions. I know. I was like, huh? But he said that like a lot of the times when he is like if he was in an argument, he would have like this really intense like tightness in his chest. And it would like overwhelm him so much that he couldn't focus. He would need to walk away, like all that kind of stuff. And he just didn't understand what that feeling was because he was so used to kind of pushing his emotions to the side and just responding with, how can I get out of the situation as quickly as possible? And so he had to break down like, okay, what you're feeling is anxiety, and that anxiety makes you feel so like nervous, basically, that it makes you angry and defensive, and then it leads to this. And even just things like if he gets really anxious as well, like his like he'll like tingle, like his like fingertips tingle and stuff like that. And so then he knows like he's kind of going to a different place.
Right.
And again, like identifying that pattern and being like, okay, like I'm starting to feel that, and then having to break down, why am I feeling that way? Where is it coming from? Why does that situation make me feel that way? Whatever. So that he can kind of rationalize and come back down and not go, you know, to a place where he's not able to focus and not able to communicate properly. But I'm like, it's interesting that that's something that he had to work through. And I'm like, I
would have never known.
And that's obviously like not what I'm learning in therapy and stuff. Like, but
oh, yeah, that is crazy.
I know, it's so bizarre. The one thing, this is like less, this is more of a practical thing. But no shoulds, taking things like one thing at a time and using an agenda. So a big thing that I talk about in my sessions is like feeling really overwhelmed and feeling like I can't do everything that I want to do, and that I'm putting things off, and I know I'm not getting things done that I should be getting done, and all that kind of stuff. And so the no shoulds thing is a big one, because the way that our counselor talks about it basically is she's like, do or don't, but don't keep telling yourself you should. Like if you've made a decision, then just go with that decision, and that's what it is. And maybe it'll change tomorrow and maybe it won't, and whatever. But like constantly telling yourself like, oh, I should be at the gym, I should have cleaned up, I should do this, I should do that, or I shouldn't do other things or whatever. It just leads to guilt and shame.
That, sorry to interrupt. That was a big thing for me too. I was a should'er.
Yeah. Well, I still am.
I'm pretty good. If I do use should, I'm already conscious about it.
Yeah.
So that's a first step, big time. But now I say I won't, or I can, or I can't, or whatever, or I could. Yeah. I use could a lot in my life. Like, I want to learn a lot of things. So when I'm holding myself accountable for them, it's like, oh, I could have practiced sign language today or whatever. But it's not I should have. It's like I could have, but I didn't. Okay, so now how can I rectify it or whatever? Yeah. How can I do it tomorrow so that I feel better about it or something like that? And it's huge because, it takes a lot of the the guilt out of it.
Yeah, well, and I think that it also makes you conscious around how you are talking to yourself. I'm not a huge believer in the like, look in the mirror and tell yourself you're beautiful. But like, you know, being conscious of how your inner narrative is directing your emotions a lot of the time. When Annie first talked to me about the should thing, she was like, you know, keep a tally of how often you're saying in your mind, I should do this or I shouldn't do this or whatever. And it was something fucking ridiculous, like 34 times that I said it in like one day. And you just start to change how you're thinking about yourself and how you're getting down on yourself without even noticing, because that's the thing, is like so much of that, what's going on in your mind, you're not cognizant, you're not thinking about it. And so it's just sort of like this constant like nattering in your mind, and you don't realize how much that's impacting you, really. And that again doesn't result in you being more productive. Like I think that that's something as well that we've talked about a ton in therapy, and especially with Matt's stuff and all that kind of thing. But just like how much every time you're trying to run away from a problem, you're making it more like present in your life. Like if you're trying to be more productive by telling yourself that you should be doing this and you should be doing that, like pressuring yourself, you're lending to you being less productive because you feel so shitty. And just different shit like that. Like it's funny how much we think that we're coping by doing things that are actually kind of like really backing us into the corner of what we don't want. The taking things one thing at a time kind of branched off the no shoulds, because instead of telling myself I should or I shouldn't or whatever kind of thing, I try to like write down lists and just cross it off as I go. And like if I only do one thing, then that's fine. But it's more about like breaking it down so that you're not, because especially with depression, sometimes what happens is you'll be like, okay, I want to film a video today, but I wanted to go to the gym, and if I go to the gym, then I'll have to shower, and then I'm gonna have to blow dry my hair, and then by that time it's gonna be like lunchtime, so you know, like it's gonna be like too late for me to, like, I'll have to make lunch, and then it'll be so dark, and then blah blah blah. Like just like you just let things get so out of proportion because you're just like catastrophizing basically like your daily agenda. And so instead of worrying about the 12 things that you need to do as a result of the first thing you were trying to do, just do one. And write it down and know that thing is done. And then that also allows you to kind of celebrate those tasks that you've finished, rather than focusing on what you haven't done. You're kind of directing it back to what you have gotten done.
Right.
And similar kind of idea with the agenda. Like the agenda was a thing that I didn't think I was going to implement, and I didn't think it was going to work for me. But when I'm being diligent, I try to write down my day, like hour by hour, kind of like, okay, I'm going to get up, I'm going to have breakfast. That's written in my agenda. And then I'm going to go to the gym from this time to this time. That's written in my agenda. And I check it off. And then I can go back through the day and be like, okay, so what do I need to do tomorrow because I didn't do it today? And also just look at the things that you did get done. Because so often, like, we're so busy, and we're expected to be so busy, I think, as well, that you aren't really acknowledging, like, how much you are doing. And I think that's, like, shit.
Well, it is, because, yeah, you're not giving yourself any credit for what you have accomplished.
Yeah.
And I think that the agenda is really important for your depression. It's so interesting, if I can say that, obviously.
Please, go hard.
But it's interesting to see how much it really did make a difference for you, because I obviously lived with you before you had an agenda and after. And
Yeah.
I think that it really did make a huge impact, especially because you were writing in things like painting, like art and stuff like that. And when I use my agenda, I literally only use it for work. And I don't deal with depression, right? Like, it's not something, thankfully, that I have to struggle with. And my agenda is, for me, it just keeps me organized.
Yeah.
And only in work. And I don't need it for...
as like a mental health tool.
Exactly. And so it's so interesting to see how different, because I deal with anxiety, you deal with depression, right? How those things, like the things that I have to do to manage my anxiety, are so different to the things that work for you for depression.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that that's not what this really is, this episode's about, but I think that it's so easy when you're like, I have, you know, a mental illness or like something, mental health problems or whatever issues, to be like, okay, well, this is what you do. because it's under the umbrella of mental health, but it's like, oh, baby.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many different, like, okay, over here we have this, and then all of these things. I'm making, like, a little mind map in the air for those of you just listening. So, yeah, I just think that's interesting.
Yeah, and that is a big part of it, of the agenda and the scheduling and stuff like that, as well as, like, with depression in particular, is scheduling in self-care activities.
Right.
So whether that's, like, yoga or cooking yourself dinner or reading, painting, drawing, or whatever, I do try to write that in and say, like, okay, I'm going to do art from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, because then that task becomes as important as everything else you're doing, rather than you wake up and you're like, okay, well, this is what I need to get done because these are important things. And then, like, I'll read tonight. Like, you tell yourself you're going to do it, but you never really get around to it because, again, like, you get tired and it feels daunting and whatever. But and you also feel like a lot of the times, at least for me, I think in a past life, I felt a lot like self-care was just, like, overly indulgent. Like, it wasn't really necessary. It was just me being weak, basically.
Interesting.
And so now I acknowledge how much that actually does make a difference in my life. So I schedule it in and I treat it as being as important as business meetings and, work that I need to get done and whatever else.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, makes a huge difference in just validating taking care of yourself as well, because that's something that I think we don't focus on.
Yeah. And I think that that's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I love coming home and seeing you doing art. It's so peaceful for me to even just, like, witness.
You're just sitting in the corner watching me.
Well, so when I used to live up here, because I would, like, walk through the area that you, like, draw in, and it would make me feel good.
Yeah, it's honestly, like, bizarre. I really put off doing art for, like, a large portion of my adulthood. But it's crazy to me how much it helps me just kind of, like, escape my thoughts a lot of the time, because my mind is just always constantly like, what do I have to do? What haven't I gotten done? Shooting myself.
Yeah.
And thinking about so many different things at once. And so it's weird because, like, when I focus on art, like, literally that's actually all that's in my mind. Right. Like, I'm just not able to focus on anything else. It's just right here. And I think that that's so valuable for me. And it's really, it's like bizarre how peaceful it is in a lot of ways.
You know what? This is making me think I should schedule in poetry.
Yeah, you should.
I could.
Everyone, yeah, you could. Everyone forcibly make Alyssa do poetry.
They're forcibly making me do a lot of things now.
Yeah. You're really being held accountable by the listeners.
No, especially on the Spanish. And I'm so thankful that they are. And I haven't gotten it there yet.
I thought you and my mom were going to do, like, a joint thing.
I know, but she hasn't even messaged me. I messaged her happy birthday and all she said was thanks.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes me feel better.
Yeah. Mom.
I'm really sensitive.
I have a question for you, or, like, just I would be curious to know your thoughts on it, basically. This is not really on topic, but it just kind of reminded me of this. I feel like we're in a society where people are really pressured to constantly be busy and be, like, a hustler and, like, making more of yourself and all that kind of stuff. First of all, do you feel like that's accurate? And secondly, what do you think about that?
I do feel that way. I think that it can be positive because I think that the message behind it is positive, but I think that it can put a lot of pressure on people. Yeah. I don't feel that pressure, personally.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. Because when I was working at Cactus, the restaurant that I use, I felt like I wasn't.
I thought you were stopping giving them free promo.
I know, but it's just, like, hard. I'm so used to, like, saying the name. Call me up, guys. But I felt like I was a hustler, and people commented on how hard I worked and all of these kind of things. And though I did feel a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? I felt good.
Accomplishment?
Yeah, I felt good about it anyway. Yeah. It didn't, I don't know. I feel better now. Yeah. And I think that people are praising me in ways that I resonate deeper with. Yeah. Well,
because I think they're praising, I mean, this is just, like, my speculation. This is my experience. But I think they're praising you. Yes. Not the work. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a very, very different thing.
It is. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, when I was working.
Is your eye welling?
No, I'm trying so hard. It was, and then I looked away like this. Did you see it? Yeah, I was like, suck it up, Alyssa. You can't have 3 in 1. But yeah, when I was working, it was like, okay, well, she can handle longer shifts without complaining. She can always stay positive. Like all of these things that are just me putting myself last, I guess.
Yeah.
And though really effective for moving up in a corporate sense, and being valued as an employee, it didn't bring the same kind of, when I would get those praises, it was almost like, okay, thank goodness, because now I can hold on to that and keep doing this for another day.
Yeah.
Whereas now the things that people are praising me for, they really mean something to me. When people say that, like, they, like, I inspire them for X, Y, and Z, or whatever, that, one of my friends who knew me back in the day, he said that I'm like a mom now. And at first I was like, how dare you? But then I was like, you know what? That's so nice, because he knew me back then and he knows me now. And he was like, you know, I'm so proud of like who you're becoming. And I was like, damn, dude, like that means a lot, because it is work. And you know that I've been having such a freaking hard time the past couple of days with like my choice to not drink. Like, it's not, I mean, we're 5 months in and it's still a struggle every day. And so it's just nice to like hear that. It's like, fuck yeah, man. Like I'm making.
Yeah. It's like reaffirming.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel that way? Like, do you feel pressured to be like a freaking like girl boss all the time?
Oh my God, it's all I talk to Annie about. Frick. Because like, and honestly, I don't feel that pressure as much from like society. That pressure I've always put on myself. Like I never feel like I'm doing enough. There's always something else I want to like add to the mix. And like lately I've been going in and like talking to Annie and being like, I really want to do this. And she's like, okay, just stop. Like you need to relax. Like no more projects, no more school things, no more like nothing. Like just fucking relax. Do the 12 other things you're doing. Yeah. And doing poorly because you're trying to focus on too many things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I feel that pressure from myself because it's such a weird thing. I've always really struggled with not wanting to lose like inspiration sparks, because I think that when I just got like a tingle, because I think that when I feel inspired, it's like the most, like I like get high off that feeling. Like,
I was just gonna say,
I love it. Like I just love feeling like, wow, like I want to do something as a result of this conversation or watching this person do this thing or whatever. And so I think that because I'm so attached to that feeling, it makes me want to just jump on things when I have the inspiration so that I can kind of push it through and like see that inspiration through basically. And so I have a really hard time letting go of that. Yeah. And I think that that's kind of like my motivating factor. But I think that as I've gotten older, I've just noticed that as important as it is to do the things that you want to achieve, like business-wise and skill-wise and all that kind of stuff, it's equally important to like hustle your mind, you know, like and focus on those things as well, because you can be growing your career, you can be growing, you know, all these other things, but if you're not growing yourself and your understanding of the world and you and your partners and your friends and your family and all that kind of stuff, it's a really empty feeling. Yeah. And I think that for a long time, you know, when I was first starting in this industry and stuff like that, I spent like a good couple of years just really focused on the work, and it felt like nothing to me. Yeah. Like I just was like going on to the next thing, onto the next thing, onto the next thing. But I had people around me being like, wow, like you're doing so well, you're traveling, you're doing this, you're doing that. And I was like, it's nothing. Like it feels like nothing. I don't feel accomplished. I don't feel proud. I don't feel anything, because I wasn't taking the time to focus on myself and my relationships and, you know, grow that side of myself along with the work. Right. So I don't know. Now I just pressure myself in two different ways.
I feel really lucky. And I don't want this to like springboard off of that, because I do, I know that you struggle with feeling like you're not like grateful enough or something like that. What can you, sorry, remind me of what you feel about that?
not feeling grateful for like my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that because I feel like nothing's good enough, I feel like I'm not as grateful as I should be. And I don't like that because I a lot of the times like kind of relate myself back to my family. So I look at like my parents who they're such hard workers. They have such good work ethic. They really believe in just doing what needs to be done and stuff like that. And I feel a lot of guilt surrounding the fact that I feel like I don't work as hard and I'm able to, you know, make really, really good money. And it's to me, it's sort of like, for what? When I've watched these people work their entire life and, you know, they can't have the things that I have and they can't take that much time off work and they can't go on vacation the way I do and all that kind of crap, you know? And not that, you know, they don't have a life of their own, but that's the thing is like, I had to kind of, to overcome that guilt, I had to really understand that that wasn't necessarily what they wanted.
Right.
And I had that conversation with Annie one day. I was like, I just feel so bad. Like, I wish I could just like, you know, like have my family experience, like my brothers and my parents and stuff like that, like experience like a quarter of what I'm experiencing. And Annie was like, but do they want that? And I was like, well, I don't know. Because it just feels like, why wouldn't people have the same wants as you? And sometimes they fucking don't.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted you to like explain that because my thought process went to like this thing that I'm going to get to. And I didn't want it to sound like, I think you're ungrateful. I don't think you're ungrateful. I think that you put your gratitude into non-material things. It's like your dogs and your relationships and stuff like that. Like those are what you're grateful for.
Yeah.
Or that's easier for you to express gratitude for or whatever. And I wanted to say, I feel really lucky that I don't have to work hard for gratitude in my life. It's the weirdest thing. I didn't even think that it was like something, but how can I say this in a comfortable way for me? I had an experience, I guess, where I was I could have died. And after that, I just like woke up with just this like crazy immense gratitude for like, okay, well, my eyes are watering, for like life. Yeah. And even today when I was in the bath and I like put my head under the water and I just felt like so grateful to like be in a bathtub. Like I don't know, it just comes so easily to me. And I think that is what keeps me, because people always say like, you're so positive, and I'm not positive all the time, but I think that is what really keeps me positive, is being able to be like so grateful for like the smallest things. Yeah. And I think that people like forget that like it's hard to like stop and take a moment to like I think you have to train yourself. You have to. I think that a lot of people, I mean, we're not all blessed. I think that a lot of people have to practice gratitude. Yeah. And I think that it's something that because we're so conscious of moving forward, because I think we do have this society that really puts that pressure of doing more and being more and all that kind of stuff on people. I think that it's like you're just so focused on moving forward that like you can't stop to really look at things. Right. And I think that that's in large part why I have a hard time. It's a large reason why I have a hard time stopping to feel that gratefulness, because I feel like I haven't done enough. Right. And I think even just feeling like I haven't contributed enough, I haven't like and this is something that I've like struggled with back and forth, is I feel like my job doesn't carry a lot of meaning. I'm gonna cry. But like I feel like, you know, there's people that, oh my God, Alyssa, you passed it on to me. I feel like there's people that have jobs that are really clearly meaningful. Like we have doctors, we have teachers and all that kind of stuff. And I think that that's a huge part of why I feel like my life doesn't look how I want it to look in that way. And so I think that makes it hard for me to feel like I've done enough and I deserve almost to be grateful. Right. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Ugh. But it's so crazy because when you're in it, you can't see that. But I mean, if I went into your like DMs, there would be so many people who are like, you lift me up, like I wait for this, like you inspire me, all of these things. And we don't get to choose who we inspire or like why. And I think, as you say, like physical health is just as important as mental health. Oftentimes your mental health can't affect your physical health. So what you're doing is really important. And it's just so that's what I mean when I say like I just feel so grateful that it does now come to me easy. Yeah. And it didn't before.
Oh, that was like kind of like the turning point for you.
Oh, yeah.
That issue.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. Remember? Don't you remember that video?
Oh, I remember it. It was...
What you rushing for?
It was awkward.
I'll just quickly, because you guys hate with the inside jokes. There was, right after this thing that happened to me, I've always like videoed myself throughout my life.
You guys don't understand. Like, Alyssa has physical documentation of everything. And not only that, like, okay, everyone takes like photos and some people take videos. They don't fucking keep them. Like, Alyssa has so many photos and so many videos of like fucking everything.
Yeah. Everything and nothing.
Yeah.
And I was just, I was like talking about traffic and I was like, like traffic just doesn't bother me anymore. Like, what you rushing for, Oh my gosh, I'm like embarrassed even like rehashing that video.
She had the video pulled up on her phone and she was screeching at her phone, and I was like, what are you doing? And she was like, I just have to show you. It was like she was so overwhelmed with embarrassment that she like couldn't handle like not sharing that, basically.
I needed to pass the embarrassment off onto somebody else. Oh my gosh, it was so embarrassing, but like at the same time, yeah, that's
what you're rushing for.
Yeah, and ever since then, I do feel a lot of gratitude. I felt a lot of guilt. I was just telling our friend, Felix, I felt a lot of guilt for a long time for being alive, and then once I got past that, I was.
That's it. Why?
Oh gosh, it's a story for another time, I guess.
All right, fair enough.
But I think that if you go through something where your existence on this planet is in question.
Yeah.
I think that you can struggle with like, why me?
Survivor's guilt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, why did I get another chance? Like, what's so good about me? And like, when all of these other people and yada yada, I'm not doing enough, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I remember posting an Instagram photo like 4 or 5 years ago in Toronto, where this is where I like really started to like find myself. I think was the first time I was in Toronto, because I was going through so much freaking ups and downs. Well, Saskatoon too, but anyway. And I posted and I said, eventually you have to stop feeling guilty for waking up. Yeah. Because I just like was feeling so guilty every day. I'm like, why the fuck do I still get to do this? And I'm like, and now I'm like, why I get to do this? And I'm gonna be my voice, man. Now I feel like I'm doing it and I deserve it. Like, I deserve to be here.
That's a heavy feeling, man.
It is. Yeah. It's really nice.
Crazy.
All right, well, I don't want to cry anymore.
Let's end on a moderately depressing note, as we do.
Every time. Did I make that approachable for you? Near-death experiences? Is that approachable enough now?
You'd be like, wow, you really summarized that for me.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys. Well, those are some things that we learned in therapy and some things we feel about ourselves. And
that really went off.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
Yeah, we just needed to really get that insecurity out. Thank you guys so much for listening for another week.
Yeah, and man, next week is the end of season 2.
Can't believe it.
We're there.
I feel like this just like blew past, but it was because
you were away.
I was away.
You were.
Yeah.
I was here all alone.
She was.
So sad. But yeah, anyway, we will see you guys next week for the season ender.
Okay, bye.